Enzo.
Hello.
And you are all very familiar with this gentleman, and he promises not to fall asleep today, don't you, Crow?
I kind of promise.
Right.
So I had a quick chat to Enzo and Crow before we started. The UFO, what do we call it? The hearing. That's what it is, wasn't it,
Right.
Enzo?
Congressional hearing.
Yeah, the congressional hearing. For an Australian, I've never actually watched a congressional anything. So from an Australian's point of view, watching how they work those was really interesting. Apart from the subject matter, it was like, oh, okay, they have a certain amount of time to speak. They're all very polite. Nothing at all like Australian politics. And it was a bit scary, really, to realise that there's people up high that have the power to wield that sword to sort of basically say, we'll ruin you, or worse.
Right.
Like, you know, and obviously Grush, I'll say his name properly eventually, Grush, he's quite obviously aware that his life could be in danger, all of them. The only person I wouldn't think would be in danger would be Faber, because he's a little bit more sedate and whatever. But I loved at the end where they said, why did you, to Faber, why did you come forward and say anything? He goes, oh, well, I didn't really want to. But somebody kept pushing, and he said eventually, I said yes. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think about the whole thing, Enzo?
Well, going into it, I had pretty low expectations, like previous meetings that were similar to this. Just really awful questions. There was still some of that, oh, you saw a UFO kind of attitude towards the panelists and stuff like that. And even the people giving the presentations at the time that were being questioned, excuse me, they weren't really witnesses of anything. They had just been compiling data, and they didn't know how to read their own data. There was, of course, the famous one a couple of meetings ago where they didn't even know how to use their own video equipment to show a video and not be able to pause it or have a freeze frame of the actual, UFO in there, or UAP and all of that. And it was just generally a pretty low bar, very embarrassing, especially if you're someone from like this community that has an interest in this and has heard a lot of these stories and things like that. This meeting that we had this past week, I was kind of shocked. There were really good questions coming from the congressional members. It wasn't, the simplistic kind of, do you like science fiction kind of story, thing where it's like almost embarrassing. They were actually very technical. They'd done their homework. It was very good. And of course their speakers were very good, which we were, in ours, that's the other part of why a lot of people may squalor about the meeting itself is, in our circles where you have an interest in this thing already, you've probably already heard Fravers' story and Graves' story. And of course, everybody heard Grosh's, interview with Ross Coulthart. So. And
it was also interesting that you had, they're politicians, but you had congressmen from both sides, Democrats and Republicans, not yelling at each other, not pointing the finger, they were all truly working together in this one to get something done about, I guess you'd call it, what would you call it? Freedom of speech, but not really. Freedom to come forward with information and not be scared that you're going to lose your job, that you're going to be, failed or
there's
whatever.
The Whistleblower Protection Act kind of an idea where there's something shady going on, but you can't say anything because you'll lose your job. And or if you threaten to go to above whoever your supervisor's head is, they'll threaten you in certain ways where you won't be able to recover. You'll never work again, and all of that stuff. And when they basically allowed that blanket kind of control within Congress during one of the previous meetings, saying that, okay, we're looking for somebody that knows what this stuff is. If you saw something weird, if you saw something straight, because really kind of originally there was twofold, because originally this was never about, hey, them aliens, we want to see them grays or any of that stuff. is the root of it was the giggle factor that was associated with UFOs. That's why they kind of changed the name to UAP, so that they were calling them UAPs now, and because especially sailors, but a lot of American military around the world were seeing strange objects, not necessarily from outer space or other dimensions or anything like that. More than likely, they were probably drones made by China. We'll just say it. Yeah. But they intentionally make the drones look weird. So when you I saw a glowing sphere thing flying around, it did a couple of circles around the ship and then it zipped off. Well, of course, that's basically a UFO sighting. So nobody wants to report that because they'll look foolish and they'll get the you saw aliens.
And Crow, have you had a chance to watch any of it yet?
Yeah, I didn't watch all of it. I think I watched the first half. It was cool getting to see them actually swear in. When you actually you swear in, it's a huge responsibility. You can't just go in there and lie because that's your ass. And that was pretty cool to see it be that official. But that testimony of him talking about the city, and I think it was either a hurricane or tornado, and it was basically was not moving at all. It was stationary during a hurricane or tornado. It zips off in an erratic fashion. That was he was saying at the time he was the only one that has seen that footage. In the Congress or Senate, whatever he's in, that was pretty cool. I have never heard of that one before.
No, and that was cool because it came from the congressman. It wasn't from the three witnesses. So even that itself, and even him saying that he initially they said you can't look at anything, you can't talk to them, you can't do anything, and he's like, I think I can, and he did whatever he had to do.
And I wanted to go back because when I was listening to Fravor talking about,
I'm losing you.
I was going to say when Fravor was just talking about, how when he saw the Tic Tac UFO, and he actually saw visual a sighting of it. There was no it was a smooth service, no propulsion. I think a lot of people they always kind of graze over that whole no propulsion thing. Yeah, it's a pretty big deal when you see no wings, no rocket fire coming out of the rockets or nothing. That's a pretty big deal. And I want to go back to this. Remember when the whole weather balloon thing was happening, right? And there's that one time they went out there, and I did a video on TikTok about it. I got some crap about it, but this one. They shot a couple of weather balloons down. I think it was the third one or the fourth one that they got scrambled to Alaska, and or was it Canada? I'm so sorry, I'm kind of a little foggy now. They get there, and the jets, the pilots say that there was no visible propulsion system, and so to me it wasn't. And a couple of the pilots said that their controls and stuff got kind of weird, and the radar got weird when they got close to it. And that's something very close to what's happened to other pilots with UFOs. I still think that third, I'm probably wrong about this whole part, that one that they encountered in Canada or Alaska was not a weather balloon still, because the one pilot said that it was no propulsion system. And when a pilot says there's no propulsion system, he was confused at how it was actually hanging in the air like that still. And I'm thinking that, and right before that, they saw that, right? They had to change these settings, and so you probably know a lot about this yourself. They had to change the settings on their actual satellite to make it more to detect things more stronger, right? Once they turned it up, they started getting more hits and bings. And what if this third thing that they encountered and shot down was not a weather balloon? It was something that was a UFO that had been sitting there, or they saw, because they had to make the settings more. What's the correct word? They had to make the settings more touchy, so they could see all items in the sky. And when I saw,
it increased the resolution on it. Yeah, that was the problem of why the balloons were floating through kind of freely to begin with. Is NORAD's system had been designed to where they kind of excluded things over a certain size that were moving, because there are other weather balloons and things like that all the time. So they kind of ignored those things, not realizing, if you follow its track, it goes all the way back to China, and they were just using the jet stream to move it all the way over here.
Right.
So that's how it got here without anybody noticing, and then suddenly, people started seeing it, physically seeing it from the ground. It's like, what's that thing? And looking at it through binoculars and going, hey, that's not a regular thing. What is that? And they call it in, and sure enough, we're being spied on.
Yeah, well, no, it wouldn't.
Well, let me be clear. The pilots that the pilot that saw the pilots saw this particular one, they said it wasn't a balloon. They said it was a metal object, a very small metal object, and they didn't understand how it was floating. If it was a balloon, they would have said, "Hey, that's the weather balloon." You know what I mean? This one was completely different than all the previous ones.
Well,
it even recorded on CNN.
I hope if it was some kind of UFO that they didn't shoot it down, because that would mean that they have it.
Well, it's still weird though how they shot it down, because if it's a UFO, that means it's still hard for me, because I understand that it's probably hard shooting a UFO down, and if they shot it down, it probably wasn't a UFO. But it's still interesting how this particular one gave their instrument panels a lot of problems. It just reminds me of like when Gresh in his when he was talking earlier, he was saying that. Did y'all hear the part where he said at one point they upgraded their satellite systems when that shit went online? They started seeing all kinds of things in the sky that they couldn't see before, and that's when they started getting a lot of hits on UFOs. It's when they upgraded their satellites.
Yeah, like it's really intriguing to me. So it'd be interesting to see what comes out of all of this, whether or not, because obviously I can never say his name properly. You know who I'm talking about, Gresh.
Gresh. I think it's Gresh.
Gresh. He's obviously got the T on everybody. He's got people's names. He couldn't say them there. He couldn't say anything because he's got securities that he can go to jail. Like, he can actually go to jail.
Oh yeah. I love the part when they asked him about, has anybody died with encountering these things, or whatever it was, and he couldn't answer it, which means yes, right?
No,
yeah, exactly.
He did answer. He did.
I'm saying. He said, "Well, I can't answer that on record.
Yeah,
I can answer it afterwards."
If the answer had been no, he'd have just said no.
Right.
Yeah, it was right. So he did for me, that was a yes. And that doesn't surprise me either. You've still got a lot of people out there who think this is all bullshit, and that's fine. I think it's real. I mean, I was married to someone in the Air Force. I know that our Air Force boys have been scrambled at times to go out and check things that are out there, and things have been seen over the Air Force base. But the very fact that it's gotten this far, and we've got 3 very credible witnesses. I mean, you can't go past who they are and what they've achieved in their lifetimes. To actually even make a joke and say they're full of shit is in my opinion, very disrespectful. But it was, I was thrilled at the questions that they asked, because I thought, like you, Enzo, and probably you, Crow, I thought they were just going to belittle these witnesses and make them look like idiots, and they didn't, and that says a lot. And it was even interesting. I don't know who he was. The main sort of fellow spoke at the end. The one who said wished his wife happy anniversary. I thought.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, he said we've been married now for 8 years or something. I can't remember what he said. And he goes, "Happy anniversary, honey." I'm like, not probably the right forum to be wishing your wife happy anniversary, but oh well. But he was all right. He said that his dad was a Marine. And he was very respectful of the 3 witnesses, which was nice to see. But I don't know what.
Well, I was gonna say too, like, this stuff has been going on. Like, remember in 1947, besides Roswell, there was a bunch of famous sightings. There was this pilot that was a couple of pilots. One pilot was a regular pilot who wasn't in the military, who saw I think it was 4 or 5 craft. This one was 4 craft, all in formation, no wings, no propulsion. And he reported this, and it was a really famous case in 47. But there was also a guy in 47 who was a military pilot I think he was a pilot who was just flying loads back and forth, right? And he was a very, very famous case where he saw, I think it was 5 in a row, 5 in the formation, craft, no propulsion, no wings. This is 1947, and it was a very famous case. And there was also also pilots came out and said the same thing. This stuff's been going on for a very long time. And I think people have kind of forgotten about these old cases that, commercial pilots, that also like the Navy has been reported, Navy commanders reporting, UFOs coming out of the water, going into the water, in the Mediterranean Sea. There's cases famous case in Britain. And so I'm sure you've heard of this one where we still have the audio. I think it was in the 80s or 70s when on a British military base, where they literally chased down a UFO in the woods. And when they got to the UFO in the woods,
Rendlesham Forest,
There you go. And they get to the UFO, and they got all the audio on tape still, and they get to it, the guy touches it, and it busts into like 1,000 pieces and just flies off. And all this is on audio.
Yeah, the colonel that was out there, I guess, was had a little tape recorder and was recording it. Weird, really weird. It's a light. No, it's gone. Now it's a light. It's gone. And one of the guards, the enlisted guys that was out there, the security forces guys, apparently touched it and had some kind of download where he just was like haunted by these numbers, binary numbers.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Wow,
Wrote it all down in his book, and then years later ran across the book and gave it to a computer nerd friend of his, and it kind of this creepy weird message that was hidden into it.
Yeah,
basically saying that it was from the far future.
No lotto numbers. I want lotto numbers from there.
Yeah, me too.
Oh yes, but you said, Enzo, he said it was from the far future. That's pretty interesting.
That was like the end of it. It was sort of this, I don't recall verbatim the actual message that was in it, but it was sort of like subject Earth, monitor, frequency, these type of frequencies, monitor these types of life forms, or origin. And it's like one of the last parts of it was like origin, and it gave like GPS type coordinates and then a date. And the date was like thousands of years in the future.
Hey, Sheldust is just asking what forest that was again. It's in the UK.
Yeah, Rendlesham Forest. If you Google Rendlesham Forest UFO, you'll see the whole story there.
And there's lots of documentaries online, interviews with the guys that were there. It's it's just a fascinating documented case. Anything to me that deals with military, police, stuff like that, to me it's way more. It just adds that much more of
credibility.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, someone asked, I think it was Sheldust, asked why are they all talking about it now. I think basically they're all talking about it now, and Enzo can correct me if I'm wrong, because Mr. Gresh, the whistleblower, has come out and said, fuck's sake, all these people are hiding stuff. Like
right.
we've got biological things, we've got they've got craft, and it's all being hidden. It's being hidden, it's being kept from the public, and we've got a right to know for security purposes. And when you hear them talk in that hearing about the fact, I did get a bit concerned because they were talking about the fact that it's a security risk, and I thought, oh no, don't go there and say that aliens are a danger. If they were a danger, we'd be done by now. And I was worried that they were going to take that tone, but I was very pleased to realise that they deflected that in their answers. Like, they weren't saying, oh yes, we're in danger from aliens from outer space. They said, no, it's a security risk because we've had craft take off and nearly hit one of these bloody things and come back and just say, that's it, I'm not finishing the sortie because I nearly hit one of those things. I think that was Gresh told that story, but actually no, it wasn't. It was the other one.
It was Graves. Yeah, Graves is the one that almost hit. That's how he knows what it looks like, because it was so close. He got a really good look at it.
Yeah, and I thought, well, Excuse me.
Gesundheit.
Thank you. But I thought that was really interesting. So, because I listened to it, I watched it all the way through, and it's like something that you have to watch. So I watched it again, and I thought, no, I want to watch it again because I want to get what I missed. So I thought it was really good. I thought that hopefully, they said 5 days. They were hoping from the date that they had this, they were hoping that within 5 days' time, they could have some idea of when they can have this meeting. And I do like that the recommendations were put in there at the hearing. The recommendations were that there should be a blanket cover. Nobody should fear for their job, life, or anything else. If they come forward with information, they'll be protected. So it'll be interesting to see when that comes into play, and therefore who will come forward after that with information. But it's just, I
want to say this real quick before I forget it. I love the part when they're talking about how are these programs funded, and he was like, "Oh, basically these are overfunded programs, and they're basically just taking part of that money and sending it to these dark projects."
And actually, that's kind of key with all of this. This is kind of the psychology of all of this. I feel that you sitting in front of Congress, which all of these people that are on that stage they're on some type of military money approval kind of something like that. If you sit there and tell them, it's like, hey, I got proof that they're doing this stuff, and they're not telling you any of it. Wait a minute, on this board, I approve all of that money. It's like, well, they're not telling you. That's outrageous. So they're kind of using the politicians' own egos against them.
True.
I know all about. No, you don't. And they're like, what? So the psychology of doing the way that this has been laid out, because I feel that there kind of has been this. Because of course, at the end of the day, my question is like, why are they doing this now after all this time of keeping it secret? Why this push? But I do feel like there was something set up as a play to try and get and that's how you would do it, is you would get the Congress's own egos involved. Like, well, I know everything's supposed to be going on. What do you mean they're keeping things from me? That will not stand, sir. And they can stomp off and go crazy. One of the things I loved about the hearing itself was nearly every single person that asked questions of the panelists was like, we are going to talk at that skit. We are going to talk. We want to know exactly what's going on.
Yep.
So that's great.
I enjoyed the fact that the fellow, the same one, can't think of his name, the same one who said happy anniversary to his wife, said that he sits annually on the budget hearings or something. And he said every year, without fail, the government fails its auditing, and they're losing something. I can't remember how many billion. He might have said
multiple billions, yes.
But I think he said multiple billions of dollars are just disappearing with no, where is it? He said anyone else would go to jail for that. And that was him talking about their own government to the panel.
Yes.
And I thought, wow. So they obviously all felt very comfortable in saying the government's ripping someone off. Where's all the money going? Oh, we're talking billions. So where is it going?
Billions would be
homeless, is it? So it's not going to veterans.
Well, the other reason why it could be hidden is because they're hiding this stuff, these reverse engineering programs, by shunting it off to civilian-run companies, and they have to shunt off the money to kind of support that from these dark funds that nobody seems to have accountability over. Because if someone does a FOIA request, for specific things, you can't do a FOIA request against a regular civilian aircraft company or whatever. They don't have to answer squat to anyone.
Well, I think that there's also a lot of paranoia out there, because we think it's China or Russia or something, and then Russia thinks it's us. Because in China, if you look into this a little bit, China and Russia, they have their own UFO problems, and Russia seems to get into a lot more. They what do you call it? They engage these things a lot more than we do. and
they pay for it too.
Right. So we're all saying, "Oh, it's got to be possibly Chinese," and they're probably saying it's got to be us because they have their own issues with them too. It's not just us; it's everybody. And I love somebody during this session recently on the 26th says something like, "No, was it? It might not have been that same thing." I'm sorry. They were saying that there's these things are here. They've always been around since we've known it, and there's nothing we can do about it. You know what I mean? And it kind of is true because no matter what we do, they're just there and they don't really go away. And they're too fast for us to catch or shoot down or do anything with. So what do you do? And this whole thing of like, well, they're not a danger. Well, not right now. But what if this is just like the what if there's a certain date that they're going to just turn on us and be like, okay, now it's time to probe your, We've
all got to die somehow, so
Well, why put off today what you can do tomorrow? You can let that ride a little bit. There's a lot of famous stories out of Korea and Vietnam for the U.S. military engaging with some of these weird things, and it never ends well. It ends very poorly. For basically, they appear to be mostly harmless, but maybe annoying if they're kind of like buzzing around your area and you're trying to navigate the same area. But if they're fired on, it's like, okay, initially they're like, all right. And they're kind of like, oh, okay, little guy trying to punch me. Okay. And then it turns into, if you keep doing it, they're like, I'm going to knock you out.
So what do you reckon anyway, guys? When do you reckon we're going to see some results from this hearing? They said 5 days.
I was going to say, I got to jump off here, guys. I'm so sorry. But Enzo, hey, dude, it was really good meeting you, dude. I saw you last time on Artist Channel. I was like, who is this Enzo guy?
Who is
this weirdo? Yeah. I was like, you were making me laugh with the stuff you were saying. So it was good meeting you, man. Hopefully I can do more live streams in the future and pick your brain. I know you were in the Air Force and stuff like that. Karen, thank you for having me on. I had a great time. This was cool delving into this stuff. I could talk about this crap all freaking day.
It's easy to do, yeah.
So, but
and you stayed awake, Crow. You stayed awake.
I know. Wow, I can't get my attention pretty good. So
I didn't bore you to sleep. That's good.
No,
it doesn't happen often. It's
all right. Love you, Crow. Go play with the Pussycat.
All right, guys. I'll talk to you later.
Take it easy.
All right, bye, guys.